Hello there. Welcome to this Manchurian Candidate special edition. Primarily for the YouTube, bit of a YouTube react and respond, and also just a bit of me trying to experiment a bit with the old technology. Bear with me a moment, if you don't mind. I want to line up a few things. Now, we're going to tune in for the fantastic, exceptional, truly outstanding, one of the very few people in the country I happen to know, speaking for Mr. Dunn here, one of the few people that makes him genuinely proud to be British, I have to say. Proper British, an iconic British campaigner here, I think, in the making. Excellent. Bravo, bravo. And actually, speak of the devil, who you calling the devil, man? Look. Oh, me and the cat. You alright, mate? Ferg. You want to say anything? You can speak, brother? Just a little bit, Mr. Fergus. Okay, cool. Anyway, right, we're all here, but we're going to watch Fergus and we're going to watch Mr. Bajari and Amiatu for an interjection about the classical Tory positions on general things, just in case any sort of, reactions of what the typical Tory voter, Tory kind of person at home might think, reacting to this wokeism, epic sort of wokeism that such things as, for example, prevent children from drowning in the water and such. Wokeism. Look, things are bad, and again, satiristic politician here. You got to laugh a little bit to get through it because it is absolutely horrendous. To be honest, I think the main thing that provoked the me doing a reaction, brother. Thanks, mate. Is God help me, right? The image of that kid washing up on the beach is something that I know. Well, I would assume is kind of burned onto the neural recollection, the way all traumatic images are just burned, seared onto our neural pathways and such. I have this image of that kid in my head forever. I will never forget it. And the fact that we tolerate it at all, and we have tolerated so much of it, is so beyond belief. I once chickened out of a channel swim, I'll be after my mother died. So I've done quite a few challenges to skydive and a Land's End thing, and after my mother died of cancer, I thought that I could do a channel swim, and honestly I just bottled after a while because I'm not the best swimmer, but genuinely the water terrifies me, and that was all before the photo of that kid. So when I remember that kid's photo, I think of how it just it's an unbearable thought. Now, creatures among us with empathy, mammalian, functional, healthy, normal humans, will hopefully have the capacity to feel deep, what is it? It's grief, it's rage, it's like a kind of, it's unbearable thing in reaction to this. And some folk are able not only to keep a straight face and deliver a kind of bullshit news broadcast, so I'm buckling up for this. I don't know how young Zoe's the strength for this. It's just it's unbelievable. For me, these are settled subjects. This was settled in the Dunkirk spirit. What happens to people fleeing warfare, fleeing fascism, fleeing near certain death, persecution, etc. like that. We settled this by fighting the Germans, and when they were obsessed with fascism, and whatever side of us and our allies' side that are being lost to fascism at the minute, really need to start to connect the dots between the Dunkirk spirit, the kind of thing that meant my grandfather basically, had a right to live and exist because Mr. Churchill was persuaded to go and get him. The similar problems, I think, are featured here, are they not? So what we've got, I'll just put up the tapestry here. So I don't really have a manifesto. I mean, you could call the whole thing a platform manifesto. I'm still working on a great deal of it. There's policy proposals, there's constitutional theory, about candidates and how to get candidates to agree to an oath, a politician's oath. That's the primary thing. Make sure they can't tell lies, make sure they're good people, make sure they don't have to join a party. Oh yeah, while I'm here and discussing this, look, I don't really know if Zoe's got any kind of party affiliations or whatever, but my advice would be to try and stay as independent as possible, okay, in this climate, right? Because the climate, political success, assuming that we've all got the same goal, which is political success, I feel that being independent, you're, brother. No? Okay. Don't try and tame cats. This is a ridiculous thing to try and do. If he wants to do his thing, let's play with the thing. He just likes to do this wall thing. It's like, lots of cats do it. I even got him a little wheel to climb. He doesn't do this on the wheel. If you could transfer this skill to the wheel, you'd be laughing. Trying to get a cat to do something he doesn't want to do. It's often what politics is like, yeah? You're trying to sort of persuade people to not be fascistic. Are you sure that's worthwhile? Listen, I ramble, I digress, etc., etc. My advice, generally was just to say to stay independent. Try not to affiliate with parties at the minute. That's my, if you like, what I want to bring to politics is understanding that your name is better than any party name that you could put on and not to do so. And actually, how far in politics can just a name on its own go? Well, Mr. Nigel Farage went a long, long way, which is why I think it's relevant to point that out, because everyone's looking around for who's the anti-Farage. Well, surely Zoe's the anti-Farage, right? Surely, right? But I guess it's like the danger is again, somebody could split the left, right, in a way, in a similar way, because then you're hoping to unite the people who have a Dunkirk spirit and have got values and principles that line up with what we fought the war over, won the war over against fascism, is just to not allow things like this to happen, whatever it takes, really. And it's just a redundant question. I don't really need to explore any further economic discussions. No. I don't need to go there at all. People don't need to die like this. That's as simple as it gets for me at the moment. I have got a very provocative policy. I hope it's a provocative policy to try and turn all this shit on its head. I'm sick to death of it all. But let's get started. This wasn't meant to be an Ian Dunn waffle. It was meant to be a listen to this person. So now I figured out that I can expand the thing. Fantastic. Okay. Welcome. Here we go. Finally at last. Enough waffle. Let's see how this went down for the very brave Zoe Gardner. Yep.
As we all know, we'll continue to have conversations about tragedies of people dying in the Channel until we change our policies. I don't know how many deaths it will take. I think if you looked back to 2016, when the body of a 3-year-old Syrian child called Alan Kurdi washed up on a Greek beach. And
Alan was the kid's name.
It's all over the front pages of the newspapers around the continent. And I'm sure that many of your viewers will remember that picture of him in his little red T-shirt lying on that beach, and how much it broke our hearts. If you had told us then that just 10 years later, 76 people drowning in the Channel in the course of 1 year would have become so normalized that we're talking about it in terms of numbers.
I remember thinking at the time it was more like, this is going to definitely get worse and worse and worse, like near indefinitely. And at the minute, I don't think we have a serious way of preventing it. Like, there's not much light at the end of the tunnel with this, guys. That's what is so devastating about it. Like, there doesn't seem to be a way out of this cul-de-sac of madness and insanity. So I don't know whether, like, strategy-wise, I'm going with this two-pronged attack on it to say, look, there is just no excuse for people dying. There's RNLI. They're going for the RNLI. I'm sorry. At what point, as far as I'm concerned, everybody, every single one of them that's ever put some kind of toxic horseshit about the RNLI should be on a watch list. Again, if our police were anything other than completely redundant and utterly useless, how on earth they're exposing the RNLI, or allow people who shut down a motorway for a protest to go to jail for half a decade and whatnot, whereas people who are targeting the RNLI are completely unchallenged by our police forces? Jesus, God give me strength. This hateful fascism is the reason for these deaths taking place, dear cops. And I know you don't care about other humans other than English fascists or Scottish fascists, bootlicking freaks, but if you could kindly do something to protect the people who are genuine lifesavers and a genuine emergency service and an all-round net positive emergency service, like the ambulance services and the RNLI. I mean, for Christ's sake, our justice system, our judges and whatnot, they're more bothered about traffic jams than the RNLI becoming the target of what is essentially a lynch mob, a race mob. It is a disgrace that we have to even have this conversation about protecting our RNLI. That was never like that when I was a kid. Nothing. I mean, the indignity of it. What a disgrace these people are. Disgusting. Sorry, back to Zoe.
Even names, not even faces, not even real people. I think we'd have been horrified. I think we'd have been shocked. I think we'd have said, we'll never allow that to happen. But we have. And I think that we need to recognize how far we've come in order to change course now.
I think worse than that, though, pal, it's become normalized, right? I guess that was the sinking feeling I had, because, I mean, I've been reading books about the climate change, the gradual impact of climate apocalypse, a slow-moving apocalypse, never mind the disastrous invasions and horrible foreign policy decisions and relentless electing of fascists and hostile environment half-wits in this country. For God's sake, it has gotten so much worse. It's worse than I ever imagined. But I think problematically, it's the normalization. Look at how completely, it's a really unedifying picture, forgive me, Sky News person, but genuinely, why is it that the news media types, this lot, right, think about how their whole presentation is, I don't feel any emotions about this thing. Now, I know that that is completely logical to some extent, right? But there does come a point, right, where it's like you could have something that is morally unambiguous. So, do you know what I mean? This is morally unambiguous. This requires the kind of emotional response from all human beings, I think. I think human beings not presenting a normal emotional response to this are admitting or confessing or showing us that they have a severe empathy problem. Now, how severe that empathy problem is and whatnot, this is up for medical professionals. I'm just pointing out as a political scientist that these Sky News types, I mean the Kay Burley types, whatever, they seem to present to me as folk who don't care about other human beings at all, unless they are very posh, privileged of a similar ilk to themselves. There is constant, critically active, I would say, dehumanization. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that they're... Do you know, that's my point here. Sorry to be a bit slight. I don't know who this person is. I don't want to target any negativity specifically to this person. Couldn't care less. I'm talking about generally cultural media. The presentation is sometimes so disturbing that it makes the problem much, much worse. When are we going to just say, what happened to the Dunkirk spirit in this damn country?
Remember that well, and I can see you get very upset by this. This is an area that you're incredibly passionate about. Which
is weird, as we've just discussed. How weird are you to care about this? What the do you know what I mean? So it's not that they're... wow, that even proved my point a little bit, because there isn't an ambivalence here. There's an active sort of diminishing of morally unambiguous crimes and behavior that is, really a contravention of the things that we signed after the war, right? To say this kind of thing would happen. People should be... They're like, why don't they stay in France? Look, the whole point is, when you end up stateless because of some horrific warfare and all that, the responsibility ought to be on the whole world, right? So they should really be able to go anywhere they like. Remembering that wealthy, super rich people have this universal global passport, right? Just like these individuals. Like, these individuals here have absolutely no empathy for what these poor folk are going through, surely because of the fact that it does not affect them. They are super wealthy, super stable, super privileged. This is a great privilege. So, forgive me, like, madam, I know you want to sort of make it out like Zoe's weird to think like this, but I just don't think that's the case. In fact, I think the vast majority of people at home think that you saying that this isn't something worthy to be upset about, I think they will agree with Zoe, and I don't think they will agree with you. And yet, I would argue that the presentation of the news media like this is to make it seem to some semi-conservative audience that it's reasonable for them to dehumanize, ignore, whatever, all the things that were written on them bullets, Luigi's bullets kind of things, right? You know what I mean? Type in whatever dehumanization tactic is the most utilizable to them at that point. And I think at this point it's acting like, isn't it weird to care about humans dying in the most horrifying, deep, cold, frightening waters that there are? Like, a man like me could be I'll jump out of a plane from 10,000 feet, no problem, mate. You want me to swim in that water? I'm shit scared of it, right? And they're like, how weird of you to care about this.
And I want to ask you about why we're seeing a big uptick since Christmas Day, it seems. I think there's been 1,500 migrants crossing the Channel in this Christmas period alone. Why are we seeing more people? What's the reason behind this?
It's very simple, and it's always the same reason. It's the weather. In the run-up to Christmas, there was terrible weather in the Channel. There was storms and people couldn't cross. And now there's been calm. And so people are trying to cross. And we spend...
Just think about hello, have you any idea? First of all, it's even if you go in that water, you're probably going to catch some despicable disease, some horrible thing that makes you sick forever anyway. That was, if I'm honest, the main reason I chickened out. I'm like, I've had to heal my body so much from the rigors of poverty. The idea of putting another disease in me for no reason at all at that time just seemed like, oh God, no, I'm not risking that. Are you mad? Because I mean, even the people that have done a channel swim and whatever, it's like they're still ill for a long time after it. We are talking about tiny babies and children and folk that are fleeing God knows what, and then again just a bunch of random guys who's their family, and in fact the emphasis from the interviewer here is on numbers and what's the spike here. How does she not already know that it's the weather?
billions and so much political capital and so much political energy on trying to affect this. And we say, you know, governments have run and governments have fought.
Right, now we've got a picture of the RNLI. So what is the deal with that now? So I don't even know what you know, the RNLI to the Farage types, you know what I mean? They would have them like little gunboats just like shooting and puncturing things and intentionally drowning people in the water. I mean, I'm near certain that they would. The ones that appear and present on Question Time present as psychopaths. And this, again, my critique to Sky News. You make the inhumane things that are a war crime, things that are counter to Britishness, as far as I'm concerned, certainly counter to Americanism in a more official way, un-American, we would say over there, like you're treating people who are fleeing or coming to this country to build a better country for everybody, get involved, are a target. And I mean, for the RNLI to be, it makes me sick to my stomach. I feel like they're targeting our own. I mean, see when they say defund the police, they call me a problem for defunding the police. The police are a net negative on society in general. How are the RNLI a net negative on anything? What are they doing? What are they doing? They're rescuing human beings. I mean, if they were targeting hospitals, this is like the way that the IDF go for the hospitals in Gaza. It's a disgrace.
Off the back of whether or not they can affect this. And the real thing, the only thing that actually matters is the weather. Because ultimately, some people need to come here. We need to be part of the solution of what migration is. You know, people are pushed to migrate, to escape from danger, and the UK needs to be part of the solution to that. And it's not going to change with smash the gangs instead of stop the boats. And it's not going to change for anything except a storm. I mean, this is how pathetic the government policy really is. And I would love for, you know, government ministers to be asked this question. Why is it that it's just a storm that can stop people from crossing, but your policies do not stop people from crossing, but they have increased deaths? This government's policies have led to the increase in deaths that we have seen.
Let's talk about those policies and get your thoughts on them now, because we know that there is a new border security command plan in place. We've heard the government talk about cracking the gangs.
Border security plan in place. Listen, what I remember, what always cracks me up about this is when we had a slow-moving pandemic that it seemed destined, certain to cause loss of life, seemed that we could go into lockdown. We are an island nation, after all. Even with the deadly, tropical, unknown how bad it's going to be virus coming at us, they couldn't actually achieve such a thing as securing the border in any such a way, right? I mean, I know it's not necessarily super relevant to this issue. It's just to point out the absurdity of the border, wall building, boat pushing, freak show nonsense. It is completely absurd. I mean, it really is absurd. Like a kind of child's understanding of the world. To say these kind of things about how you could solve these problems or who is to blame. Let's blame the people that are fleeing the wars that we've started, the climate change that we're causing, and basically target any services, even our own services that we're paying for, who try and just save human life. And even like the accepting the reality that their policies have caused an increase in loss of life here doesn't seem to reflect on the idea that somehow we could still achieve something that we could not even achieve at a time when all of our lives potentially depended on it. Brilliant.
The gangs. I mean, what is wrong with that policy in your opinion? And more importantly, what should they be doing?
Well,
What's wrong? Whoa, wait, which policy? Forgive me.
Plan in place. We've heard the government talk about cracking the gangs, smashing the gangs. I mean, what...
Cracking the gangs. The only thing the government are doing is probably smoking crack themselves.
Wrong with that policy in your opinion? And more importantly, what should they be doing?
Well,
right, so the smash the gangs policy is not a policy, is it? And crack the whatever. You're just crackers is the answer. Being crackers, having a hostile environment and saying whatever derogatory victim-blaming horse shit that doesn't add up to a policy. How is that a policy, right? It isn't a policy. The policy, like Brexit. Brexit was not a policy. But you dafties decided to say, oh, this is a policy because they've given it a stupid name. I don't know, presuming it's for market advantage. Maybe, just maybe, right?
It's the gangs as though they're the root of the problem. But of course they're not.
They're not?
Well, no.
How could they not? Wait, the gangs, we've invented this whole gang. I mean, it's like the Suicide Squad, maybe. Not like suicide, that's inappropriate. Forgive me. Take that word out because apparently it deselects me all the time. What squad or gang? Jesus, it's cuckoo nuts. This you've invented a middleman that probably, I mean, does probably exist and almost certainly is a feature of this. There's no doubt about it. It's a feature of it. But again, that's irrelevant to government policy, really. If you had a decent government policy, this problem would not, exist, right?
It's not. What was Alan Kurdi fleeing from? He was fleeing from the horrific war.
Keep saying the kid's name. Sorry, that's tremendous. You're a fucking legend, mate. I mean,
in Syria and the horrific crimes of the Assad regime. As long as those crimes continue to happen, then the truth is people do need to move. And most people don't move as far as the UK.
How is so? I feel a bit like Zoe's on the defensive here. I feel like what I would be saying is, how is that a damn policy? Sorry, what policy do you want me to argue with? I mean, for serious, do you want me to argue with you not having a policy and people dying in the water? Right. Well, my policy is we will have a policy of some kind that will not let people die in the water, whatever the policy is, even if it ends up in something horrible like deportation in the fucking thingway. Look, even that would be a step up. Even that would be a step up from the current situation where you, even Sky News, the only other picture other than Zoe's face you put up is RNLI. Why? What does that even mean?
Most people stay far away from us. A very small proportion of people.
Their policy smashed the gangs, right?
Ever make it to Europe, and a smaller still proportion are trying to come to the UK, but some are, and they are willing to risk their lives and die for that possibility. And you know as well as I do that in 5 years from now, we can have smashed the gangs all we liked, but if there's still war in Sudan and there is...
Smash the gangs is like a war on drugs type nonsense. Do you know what I mean? It's like a completely targeted sidestep. It's a kind of, what do they call it? Darvo again, and a diversion? Is it a diversion? I'm forgetting the word, forgive me. It's a, look at that thing. It's a squirrel. It's a fucking squirrel, that thing.
The Taliban in Afghanistan.
It's not our fault. We haven't made a total mess of foreign policy for 20 years straight. We have absolutely a hateful attitude in our head, and we're doing something that is sadistic and nonsensical and illogical because we like to do it, because we're all hateful fascists. That's the truth of it, isn't it? Sorry.
Then the UK will still be a destination for safety for some of those people. And if we still keep treating the gangs like they're the root of the problem, then we can arrest one and another one will take their place.
Yeah, we heard earlier that these gangs are decentralized, and when one goes, another one pops up.
What? I'm just going to ignore how you've totally made the conversation I've wanted to have redundant and have the redundant conversation anyway, okay?
As a market, there'll always be demand for it. But what is your answer? Is it to let everybody who's a potential...
Here's the straw man. Ready for it?
...seeker come and live in the UK? Is that what you would like to see happen?
Personally, yes, because the more of them, the less of us, and the more the balance will be of cool, normal people, because the majority of people here in this country seem to be quite fascistic. So that's my truth. Also, generally people coming in, right? I have worked with hundreds of immigrants. I don't know how many people. I don't even like to use the language, right? People from other countries whom I have worked with have impressed me in ways that no British worker ever has, right? People who've come from Italy, people who've come from America, people who've come even from China, people who've come from France, people who've come from Sweden, people who've come from Germany. I've worked with people from Spain. I've worked with people from everywhere nearly in the continent in the 5-star hospitality field. Also, then you can add all the bankers I'm working with. They're from all over the place and all. The further away from the UK... I hate to say this, but you're not gonna like this. You're not gonna like this, dear viewer. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say something general and a little bit hateful, and I'm gonna regret it maybe. But honestly, British folk, we have allowed our culture to degenerate here so much. It's a bit like America, right? America has done this too. I think we are equally guilty of degeneracy in the way that we've allowed standards within our country to decline. This is a complex social thing, needs a little bit of a Beveridge Report mindset. It's not a hateful mindset at all. It's just the fact that we've had a kind of so much privilege. Privilege is a kind of toxic thing for your life, really. You want enough privilege to have a good start in life and not drown in the goddamn water. Like our Alan, forgive me, I don't want to get that name wrong. Is it Kurdi? Kurdi or Kurdi? I'm not sure. Like very much like Kurdish. I wonder if that was his origin or whatever. God almighty. Look, that is just so below the basic standards of a country We are no country or nation if we let that happen on our doorstep. It is a disgrace. But these people, these fascists over here, who are fine with it and think it's genuinely absurd that we would say we do not let people die in the ocean, in the water. We do not let them die and perish of starvation, that there's a good chance we're either directly responsible or partly responsible for. There is an absolute minimum, and it was called the Dunkirk spirit. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but my history, I don't know. I've had it challenged quite a bit. I didn't know anything about it till I watched the film. Oh my God, the film tells a different story. Wait a minute. Churchill didn't want to rescue the people? No, he didn't. He didn't give a damn. He wanted to let the Luftwaffe just take them all out. Scots, Irish, etc. So that would have been my grandfather. So this voice you're hearing right now would not exist were it not for the Dunkirk spirit. Lucky you. Lucky me as well. But I'm lucky cat here. My point would be, we have to start to rehumanize people from other countries, right? And having these people tell us that foreigners are awful and everybody from overseas should not get into this country. All this hateful, bizarre fascism that seems to just have arms and legs continually getting back up like a zombie, come and get us, getting worse and worse and worse. Seems to, because I guess that's what's confounding my belief a little bit, right? If I'm going to say what's confounding my belief is how much worse these attitudes are getting, rather than them going, oh my God, we really do need to change. The corporate side keeps broadcasting this, and I start to realize that I don't know how useful this is, Zoe. I think you're doing a great job, pal. I'm just like, I'm not sure. Because is she going to mug you in this overall? Going to make you look like a fool? Let's just wait and see if we get. Before I come to what my proposals and my thoughts on the whole thing are, let's get this in.
I think that when you talk about letting everybody come here, it sounds very scary and overwhelming. But if you actually...
Well, for some it is. I mean, for some people it is.
It is if you keep making people scared with your hateful bullshit. You're broadcasting fear, hatred, and all the rest of it, right? What you should be broadcasting, in my opinion, is caution, being sensible, having really no great prejudice between people who are fleeing warfare from a different country to come here and survive, as you would to people who work at institutions, key institutions, who are maybe even major community leaders who are doing appalling, disgraceful things in community. That's the thing about you right-wing type, leaning to the right people. Your blind spot is the establishment itself. Your blind spot is the churchy people themselves. And they are all, frankly, creepy, kiddie, fiddler, problematic people. So, again, when you're cooking up fear and whatever the hell it is about these totally innocent people, it is just racism. It's important that that has to be clear right now. I would diagnose this without any shadow of a doubt. We're what? Only 4... Oh, Christ, I've been waffling. We're like 4 minutes in. I would diagnose this as racism, xenophobia. She's saying there's a legit reason to be fearful when, proportionally speaking, even though this is why they go nuts and start lynch mobs about the Southport thing, again, not to in any way take away that tragedy and the horror of what happened there. I don't really know enough about it to comment, but the problem is, it's in a grand scheme of a world full of atrocities, a world full of kids washing up on beaches, a world full of deaths that I can't. I mean, I'm one to choose between getting stabbed to death or drowning in that water. I need to think about that quite carefully. I would never choose what the NHS did to my mother. I would never choose what you people want to do to these tiny babies and people fleeing the war in the water. I mean, it's abominable, appalling. One has to draw a line somewhere, and this is, to me, independent migration policy researcher. Look, there you go. This is a person with qualifications, and you are, frankly, look, mate, I'm not being funny, but pundit class mainstream news. I don't know your name. You're telling her that it's reasonable to be afraid of these folk who are drowning in the damn sea with nothing. You're nuts. That is insanity. To be afraid of that, to be scared of that is fucking diagnosable insanity, racism. End of story. I don't think I need to spell any more on that. How could that possibly not be racist? You're standing here meeting an expert in the field and you're telling her it's legitimate to be fearful of people who are largely drowning in the sea. I mean, like, the thing is, if you treat people horribly and you treat people like garbage and you treat people like less than human, they're not going to react well to that. I mean, maybe this is the instinctive reaction that you have. You're like, well, I've treated them so badly, they're going to be a problem for me because I continue to treat them badly. I know I'm going to treat them badly. I want to treat them badly every step of the way. From their fleeing the war that we caused and created and enabled and backed and all the rest of it. Sky News in particular would have had very blood red hands related to Iraq and all the rest of these other disastrous Libya and whatnot. foreign policy decisions, Afghanistan, it goes on and on and on. Just chaos, right? Feeding off chaos, making money off chaos. What's the interest here? The interest here is just to teach fear and xenophobia, I think. Like good old classic, turn on the news and it's fear, 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 fear. You know, in the 90s, that's how it was then. And it's never really changed. But this, you know, where we are in the UK right now, things, you know, taking a while to filter through and whatnot, this really is gutter trash, I'm afraid to say.
Well, that's why I'm keen to respond to that, because if you actually look at our migration needs in this country, we are an aging population. If you take away migration, we're a shrinking population. So many of us are getting older. And if we want to maintain the support that we have for pensioners...
What have we gone? So we've gone from fear of... Because she was implying fear of, like, violence and crime and stuff, right? So I would have gone for the statistic of saying, look, the statistics show that this actually homegrown criminals are far more problematic than any imported ones in a grand scale, and that seems to be the case throughout the world. I'm not sure why. I think it's something to do with the fact of being slightly fearful of the authorities, particularly if you're undocumented and such. So, interesting shout, but nonetheless, completely valid. We need these people. We need humans. Humans are the only way that you're ever going to get growth, right? I hate to break this to you, economists, but tax cuts are not the thing that creates growth. It's people doing work and generating productivity and doing things. So, skilled, even unskilled, enthusiastic labour, you will never get better than immigrants, as I said before. I have mainly learned my work ethic from people from overseas and had to have my British work ethic stamped out of me under very ruthless five-star hospitality conditions.
Country. We want to be able to pay pensions. We want to be able to support people to heat their homes, to get the social care that they need and the health care that they need. We're going to have to continue to bring in immigration. At the current time, we go out and we actively recruit for immigrants to come from all around the world in order to fill those roles. But at the same time, we have such deadly borders for the people who are desperately in need to come here that they die week in, week out in the channel. Now, surely we have the capacity to arrange our immigration system better.
How dangerous do they look, eh? They look so dangerous. See, that there was some chump on the other day going, well, I don't know, but it was like Vikings. I remember the Vikings, they came over here on boats. You know, that was like an invasion, wasn't it? Which I don't know, but back in my day, we called that an invasion. These guys are, head-banging fuckwits. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you do? If these people are your mates, if they're in your life or whatever, just get confident about challenging them, okay? Just rip the piss. What are you talking about? Is this what you're scared of? These people have nothing. These people have absolutely nothing, and you're saying that they are the Vikings? Fucking cuckoo. You need your head examined.
So that we make use of the resource.
Sort of use mental health as a tool and all that there. Didn't mean to do that. It's more like, in a kind of derogatory way. Get your damn head checked out. You're absolutely, you've lost your marbles. Not in like an authentic way, like as in because you're a mental health person, I'm bullying you. No. I'm just implying that the idea that they have in their head is somewhat a disease.
Is coming to us in the form of these refugees, and we help them and we integrate them into our communities and we support them so that they can be part of that workforce.
So, sorry to interrupt again. Hang on, no,
tax base that this country simply, objectively needs.
What other countries?
So let me just, before this guy says something hilarious here, right? I use the Statue of Liberty a lot in my imagery, it's one of the most stunning things built, isn't it, on the face of the earth. I believe it was a gift, wasn't it, from the French and all that. And it has a poem on it. I'm not going to butcher my quote, but it's Emma Lazarus' poem. And it is the one that says to bring me your cold, you're tired, all the rest of it. It's very, very powerful to think about the dream of people coming to America, fleeing, whatnot. What has that created? Just think for a minute, right? Think for a minute. The greatest, most powerful, whatever you want to think of, the tallest, most stunning architecture, the greatest military force. Not that that's a thing to be great or whatever, but you know what I mean. Most imposing military unit on the face of the earth, the world's superpower, created largely by what? Immigrants getting it done. Well, look, I'm sorry, but there is absolutely nothing more sabotaging, I think, going on to our economy right now than this hostile environment, toxic garbage. I think that the UK would be doing better without this lot. Excuse me, if we could deport this lot, I would be more tempted to the whole deportation policy if we could do it with people who are just assholes rather than people like this fleeing. Look at this. This is our responsibility. This is our shame. This is our failure. Dunkirk spirit. Where is it? Dead. Gone. Forgotten.
Doing that around the world.
Around the world, you got to look.
She's saying which countries are welcoming immigrants?
Lots of different ideas.
Every single other country on the planet of the earth. What kind of nonsense is this? Comes a point in an interview, surely, right? Because, like, think about it, guys, right? At this minute, this is me coaching Zoe. She's not ever going to hear my content or whatever. But listen, at this moment, you just go, a little chin pop here. Like, just lean into it. Bop. Look, what kind of attitude is that? You know? Just get back, push back at these sons of bitches, right? Because it is clickbait gold, right? And you're doing so well. If like I'm not brave enough to get that kind of clickbait at the moment, but you know, this is legit good material. You're on Sky News. What have you got to lose by calling them out? Look, I'm sorry, but this is just absolutely dehumanizing treatment. Do you not care about what principles we have as a country? Do you not care about how we won the war? Do you not care about being bigger and better and stronger than every other country in the planet? Because we are welcoming, because we have a great economy, because we are a modern country, we're a welcome liberal. And they don't want a welcome liberal country. They don't. They want a little bordered, walled-in, freak show, conservative, paedophile heaven, right? Forgive me, but not really. Fuck me. Get in there. Go on, get in there.
But most countries do some things well and some things badly. For example, Spain has a...
Why does this matter? What? So, like, why does it matter? Why are we having to answer for that? What? Look, at the end of the day, because lots of other stupid people are doing stupid things, is that your reasoning? What are you asking me? Do other countries what? Do they what? Do other countries turn the lights? I mean, what is this an absurd question, isn't it, when you think about it? Are you telling me that this is going well? Is this your outcome? Why are we defending this? Well, I don't have to defend some hypothetical hootenanny nonsense about which other country is doing this well, other or whatever. No. You just look at the problem and fix it, for Christ's sake.
A border policy that's just like ours. I mean, horrific numbers. More than 10,000 people have reportedly...
You just had a guy try and build a wall, completely fail at it. We've had these idiots going on about this for decades. I mean, what on earth? It's just like, why are we on the defensive at all for solutions? The solution is people don't die in the water. That will be the win. The win is people don't die in the water at this kind of rate anymore. Whatever happens after that is up for grabs. But the dying in the water bit is completely below the par of a basic country.
This year, trying to make it to Spain. So we're talking about a devastating number of people who have died. But if you make it to Spain and you enter their asylum system, you're entitled to work after just a few months. And the Spanish government actually has partnerships with firms that are desperate to recruit more people because, like us, Spain is...
This is great, because again, it's the economic benefit of people that are coming in, and that's where my solution will come in. So we'll wait till we get to that.
Population, and they lack some of the skills they need in some parts of their workforce. So they actually have, programs to train up and feed these asylum seekers into the workforce in places and in jobs where there is need for that labor. So that makes a lot more sense than our system, where we leave people in limbo in these hotels, which have become sites of, a lightning rod for the hatred in our society, and we don't allow them to work, and we keep them there in limbo for, on average, about 2 years.
I'm glad you mentioned those hotels, because I was looking at just some Home Office figures which were published in the beginning of November this year. And apparently from 2023 to 24, the UK government spent £3 billion on housing asylum seekers.
£3 billion? That's so much money. Oh, that's going to cause outrage. Look, sorry to be whatever about it, but for goodness sake, I know a number out of a bumhole, whatever the fucking number is, some random they've spent a gajillion pounds. Oh, I just can't. What? Again, how do you deal with this? Because this is always their strategy. Pull some mucky number from somewhere that the sun does not shine about something that, like, why don't we just paint over the damn murals? That's it. When this comes up, right? Let's go for murals, yeah? So hang on a minute. Are you suggesting that, the standards that people are treated with, what does that say about us as a nation and all? You know what I mean? It's like, if you make these people a legit target for hatred for a second, there's just no bottom that they will not go to. And that's, I really want to bring a kind of zero tolerance culture to a lot of politics again. I try and call it the abolition, it's a spirit of abolition, but it's also the spirit of zero tolerance. Just saying, What kind of dehumanizing shite is this that you have to hand at this moment? Why is it that you have all these bullshit statistics handy, which of course you haven't seemed to not be able to retain, even that 3 billion or whatever it was? Look, it's just disappointingly bad that you have got a proper top-end researcher here who could probably answer lots of intellectual questions about how to fix the problem in a very efficient way, and your only interest is to press your despicable far-right, hate the foreigners, xenophobic, drown them in the ocean bullshit, blame the RNLI, etc.
There's a question many people will ask, and I'm sure you've heard this many times before, is as a country, can we afford it?
How are you going to pay for it? Oh. It's like the whole last, see this period here of Zoe doing the explanation, yeah, we get to this point and it doesn't even matter because this is just a script and you're just a daft avatar that I bring on here to project our bullshit about immigration and whatnot. So thanks very much for talking and telling us useful stuff about investment and growth and human beings having inherent value. Whatever it is, nonsense you're bringing to this channel. Wokeism, bloody wokeism.
Well, we don't have another option. I mean,
what do we do with that?
I think people
Excuse me while I just smash my head against a wall, or something more useful than talking to you.
substitute on the street is also expensive in the end as well. What we have to ask ourselves with this is,
Ooh, did she hit with the net negative? Listen, again, brilliant. Because again, this complete nonsense is a huge drain on the country. And again, they end up becoming violent and deranged and whatnot. Funnily enough, if you treat human beings in this way, they don't actually go all that well. It's an aspiration. I'm exasperated too, pal. Look at the steel. You know what I mean? This is like a practiced stare into the mirror. Show no humanity. Do not present as a human. Act like it's perfectly reasonable to just let folk drown, including little babies, in the water. That's the level we're at here, guys. Okay, it's perfectly normal. I'm not going to do anything demeaning, like, put these people's faces up and whatnot. I hate all that stuff. It's pointless. But look, you personally, from me to you, madam, again, I'm not sure your name. I have found that your contributions are completely robotic and totally uninspiring and generally support a fascist bent and a hateful attitude, okay? So I would beg you to quit your job as a Sky News correspondent. Quit it. Quit. Just walk out the damn door. What have you got? You've got enough money. Look at you. You seem very credible. I'm sure you're very bright and clever. You don't need to be reading out this garbage. You don't need to be presenting hateful nonsense on the news. You don't need to be doing this. Leave this to the bottom-feeding journalists. Come and do something useful that will improve the world rather than this.
those people who are being accommodated in hotels, for example, we know that there are 6,500 Syrians. What is the ultimate outcome for those Syrians from that process? We all know it. They're going to get refugee status. We're not sending anyone back to Syria for now. So why on earth are they in hotels, not allowed to work? Why on earth is the government incapable of processing their applications and granting them a humanitarian status so they can get on with their lives and get out of those hotels and we can stop paying for it?
They need a scapegoat. I mean, my theory is they literally just need a scapegoat. Oh, look, a squirrel. Like, I blame them. Look what they're doing. Ooh, foreigners. Ooh, like that. It's just so that don't worry about my tax cuts and all that. Don't you worry about the corruption and all that stuff. Don't worry about all the kind of dodgy things we're getting. Don't worry about the complete and total failure. And again, when it gets really toxic, and what worries me about the future is this is the kind of toxicity that takes us to war ultimately, right? It really is.
Like, it was weaponized incompetence from the last government. This government, I can't understand. What is it that is stopping them from getting a grip on this situation?
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Zoe Gardner.
Brilliant, tremendous, well done. I mean, how on earth would cope with doing that kind of coverage? Well done. I don't know if you can see this fully correctly. Where are we? Cops, constitutional reform, NOMAD. There we go. Right, so I'm going to finish on this because I've had you here listening to me for ages and ages. Really appreciate it. This is what my proposal will be called as a NOMAD global passport. So NOMAD status, what I want to think about is how when somebody becomes stateless for any reason whatsoever, they unfortunately lose a lot of their rights and privileges, and then they become a vulnerable person in the sense that they can end up in a boat drowning in the water and nobody cares. Okay, I don't think that anyone in the world should ever fall into such state. Okay, and I think that the way to do that is to create a new bank of sorts. Maybe I'll just tack it onto something that exists already at the moment, whatever, and start issuing bank accounts and devices and passports to all these folk. Okay, and Instead of, and I would say the thing about there's a danger with the second class citizen thing. If you create a nomad passport or nomad whatever, there's a kind of second class citizenry. At the moment, we already have a world where the wealthy have absolutely no borders, no restrictions. They can do whatever they want. They can fly there and back again. They just are completely omnipotent, free in the world. Now, I want all humans to have that, right? That's what the no borders thing is. I don't really care about being strawmanned in this way, like the way that they do it there, which they're going to do every single time. You try and do anything to rescue people from the sea. They make it about, or you want some ludicrous policy about the world. Right, okay, well, hang on. What is your policy about the world? Well, this is my policy about the world. There must be a point in the future where this nonsense comes to an end. How will that take shape? For me personally, it comes in the form of giving a recognizable, monetized, currency-based, everything, asset to people who are without a state or are stateless or choose to, and this is the thing, I would try to make the NOMAD global passport come with some perks that make it very attractive for our super elite. So in other words, to make the NOMAD global passport thing work, you would have very, very wealthy people invest into the idea so that they themselves enjoy what they want the most, what they want above all, which is a kind of, I don't contribute taxes to the country where I'm living. Okay? Now, for those of us that believe in people paying taxes, which I do, it just sounds a bit mad. This is the trade-off. This is my trade-off. My trade-off to the super elite will be you want your global freedom, your status that you don't have to contribute anything anywhere and be free, wealth-carrying, that sort of, not really Adam Smith, but sort of fantasy version of Adam Smith economics, kind of pure liberal economic, whatever. Let's give them that, because they spend all their time trying to avoid tax or get out of tax, and they spend their time in the countries that they're in being a nuisance and a pest and a nightmare, etc., right? And a problem. And having their damn sabotage operating against us all the time is just exhausting and fatiguing, and I'm sick to death of it. And I think that not meeting the dishonest man in the middle, I think that actually just giving up on trying to get these folk to be a positive influence and accept that they will be sort of global floating units of wealth to some extent, but they must not benefit. And here's the thing, because the nomad and the nomad and the nomad, there will be nomad services within states, but nomads will not have settled status in the traditional sense. So you have to be able to preserve, pragmatically speaking, the passport status, all the laws and all the sort of existing state of affairs, so as not to cause too much chaos and whatnot. But as I said, creating a whole new status, a nomad global passport, I'm calling it, tentatively. You're welcome to hear other names, but it's tacked onto a thing I call Project Nomad. So I tried to design a vehicle a few years ago, and I received a horrible legal challenge because it was too cool a vehicle. One of the reasons why this little guy, UFO dude, is this kind of traveling vehicle, it's like, well, not a UFO, calm down, I'm not. This is a very cool kind of off-road bike with power, and technically speaking, a mobile home. And I saw a folder, something. Look, there's a guy's made some fascinating things, just gone to market, he's done really well with it. I've not been able to do that because I got a legal threat to say this is too similar to our thing. So if you try to make this thing that's like our thing, we will sue you. So we didn't do it. And the same happened with a dude from Glasgow. So like, there's potential for new things. This is the Project Nomad also overlaps in a tapestry sense with the housing market, right? Manifesto, tapestry, understand? Tapestry, things that weave together, things that make sense. So nomad status in the world, for me, would be an aspirational thing where one can enjoy. To be honest, I personally do not want to contribute taxes anymore to what is currently the regime that is in charge of the state, right? Do you understand? So like nomad would have a nomad banking, nomad democracy, nomad approaches. And we would be able to have nomad people sort of moving around the world in the way that capital moves around the world, to where the labor is needed. And critically, the survivability of rapid climate change and stuff is going to depend on our ability to move in a nimble way and be less bothered about, frankly, borders and who's ending up where, and more about who's going to survive this thing and who's not, and what kind of state of affairs is that going to go down in. So for me, the solution would be to create an asset that reflects the inherent human value of all people. I know this is a bit like toxic capitalist neoliberal thinking to some extent, and believe me, it is. I like to be the pragmatist who co-opts everything from everybody. Remember, I've got socialism running through my veins, but I'm also so liberal, it's kind of, a bit frightening how liberal I am. Like, I really believe in the individual, in the way that liberals do. But I am also completely rooted in the sense of community that humans have. I think that is the pragmatism of being human. You get to sort of be a little bit of both. And what about nomad status? Well, I want to live the rest of my life being free to go where the hell I want. Right now, fortunately, being whatever, British passported and all the rest of it does enable that, generally speaking. But since Brexit, that has all been started to take away, and it's been taken away from the next generation, hasn't it? So this constant fascistic bent on the direction of history must change, and I don't know quite how to do it to get us out of this golden age and into a new age, but this is what I'm putting forward. This is what I think could get us out of it. This is what I believe, okay? This is what's in my head about politics. And for me, the solution here is this one, propose to the United Nations a nomad global passport. Say, look, there should not be an illegal human anywhere ever again, right? Even if people are trying to be targeted, they will at least be nomads, and they will at least have a nomad status, and they will at least have a nomad passport, a nomad bank account, and a little uncoupled from geography state, to be honest, the way it would play out. And not just that, very useful transferable skills for lots of economies, and maybe a human race where there is more nomadic lifestyle is the answer to a lot of what we're going to be dealing with over the next hopefully a long time, but maybe a shorter time. And the answer is, I think we need this nomad status to become a formalized, legally recognized, and therefore protected status, so that these are not just like, who gives a shit who's dying in the water, who gives a shit, why can't they all just back to France, what the hell. No. The minute a person becomes stateless, when their country collapses in the way that many countries do, they can adopt a nomad status. Or if you're in a country and you prefer not to contribute to the taxes and you prefer to opt out of lots of the state's services and whatnot, so in other words, to go private, so to speak, which, can I remind the listener, that is what they damn well do anyway, guys. Okay, I just don't know how we're ever going to win back the idea to some of these golden children that they ought to contribute to society. They genuinely will do things like Boris Johnson, go in and say, oh no, there's a society now, I've decided there's a society, now that my life depends on society, I need society, and then we'll go back to not needing it. No. What I suggest is we try and at least deploy them in a useful fashion, right? Now, the nomad situation, this needs a lot of thinking, a lot of it with banking is a little bit above and beyond my pay grade significantly, right? But fundamentally, from a political standpoint, it would be to give them a solid, irrefutable human status. However we do that, it may not be a British passport, and to fuck the British passport, I kind of want a Scottish one anyway, to be honest, but, I didn't get one of them. I remember all my family started going, well, we're going to use the Irish side to get an Irish one, and loads of my family members got the Irish one. Honestly, and I said, I'd rather hold off for the Scottish one, to be honest, and that hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it ever will, but maybe I'll get a nomad one, I was thinking one day. Maybe I'll just become somebody who has the Scottish heritage and feels a bit British and feels a bit American, but ultimately loves every single country on the face of the planet, because the world is so rich and diverse and beautiful. Why would I not love the whole world? It's insanity. These people are very limited by their hatred. Hatred is a pathology. Hatred is a disease that lives within you. Try not to catch it from these people. I think I've rambled enough, and hopefully I've dumped enough of my silly idea, and it's space age stuff, but whatever. Look, it's really not, is it? It's just like, give people status, give them a status. It might not be the status that we are finding a complete barrier to giving them, whether that be American status, Canadian status, American, whatever. Settled status within that nation might not be achievable, but giving them a status that rescues them from death and rescues them from worker exploitation and rescued them from, as we say, the gangs and whatever other horrible conditions that can befall people who are stateless and without a passport. That just must end. Make everyone a recognizable human asset to the human race with a nomadic human passport if one is necessary. If the home state is determined to be a son of a bitch like ours is, give them the nomad passport. Take on a nomad constitution, even. So let's talk about that another time. I'm going to go now, and that's been a big waffle. And I think this is my longest video I've ever made. I want to see if I can put this up easily onto the YouTube. Thank you for enjoying, and all the best now. How do we finish this, eh? Do we say